In 1977, we get The Bridge to Terabithia by Katherine Patterson. And this one is another one that's very frequently banned. And we got references to witchcraft, atheism, and swearing. Swearing comes up a lot. Just those little, one or two words. But witchcraft, atheism, and swearing, which is interesting. And similar to Madeleine L'Engle with religion coming up, both of the authors, Katherine Patterson and Madeleine L'Engle, are Christian and have like ministers or preachers within their in their families. So they both have taken kind of like, what do you mean this is like an anti-religious kind of book, or saying that it's the atheist, or they kind of were taken aback, and Katherine Patterson for sure was taken aback when she heard her book got banned.
Yeah, so I actually have the article up that you shared with us. This is from Carnegie Mellon University's Banned Books Project, talking about different books. One, they cite that Bridge to Terabithia has stayed in the top 10 banned challenge books since its publication. And then, quote, like most children's book authors whose books have been challenged, Patterson finds it ironic that her book has been banned, seeing as her own parents are Christian missionaries and she got married to a Presbyterian minister. She found it hard to believe that her book incited the idea of promoting secular humanism, New Age religion, witchcraft, evil, and the danger to children. As time moves on, Patterson's novel goes lower and lower on the banned book list, but its challengers prevail in hopes to avoid corrupting their children and to shelter them from the inevitability of death and grief, end quote. So interesting.
Yeah. That, right, you could totally tell that what it's being banned for over and over, because as you pointed out from the article, it's been on that top 10 list. And that's happening less and less with Bridge to Terabithia as time goes on. It's kind of not making those top spots anymore. But it's totally opposite of what her intention was.
So I remember reading this book. It might have been earlier than middle school, but maybe I'm having a flashful of memory, maybe something. I think this is the first book that made me cry. I think this was the first book that made me cry because it is so powerful. Spoiler alert. It's two best friends. That it does tackle issues around, mostly about class and socioeconomics. Like, she has a little bit more money. He goes to her house and he's, you have a television, you have a new radio.
Yeah.
She got new paints, and like, it blows his mind the difference between the way they live. But they make their make-believe world together and build a tree house, but then she dies because she goes and runs to the tree house when she's like mad about a fight or whatever, and she's trying to climb the tree house and it's storming and she falls out of the tree and she dies. And it's so tragic because he blames himself. And where it comes from, I guess, the questioning of religion is the stages of grief you go through of like, you believe in God, maybe, or you have religious beliefs in some form of an afterlife, but then you're like, how is this fair? And going through all of that. So maybe that's what they're challenging, or they don't want 10-year-olds thinking about grief and death, even though it's a very real reality for many kids. But I remember that scene making me cry, and that might have been the first book that made me cry. I think I was probably towards somewhere between 5th and 7th grade, I think, when I tackled this one. I can't quite remember when I did, but I do remember reading it for school. This one was assigned.
Okay. Yeah, this one gets assigned a lot. It does have that. It's very much. I feel like it's one of those cornerstone kind of gateway to YA literature books, because it is that younger age, but it deals with a lot of those themes that come up in a lot of great YA titles that students will read later. So it's like that's. If this book resonates with a reader when they're younger, you kind of know what they're gonna really like when they get up into middle school and high school. So like, as a librarian, it's one of those that I can look at like, you really liked Bridge to Terabithia? All right, we know where we're going with this.
Okay.
Or if you didn't like it so much.
I want to test. If I loved this book, what then would be other books you think I would have gravitated towards as a reader?
One that I always make the connection to in my mind with this one, I go straight John Green. And I think of like Looking for Alaska.
So I haven't read many John Green, but I have read Fault in Their Stars.
Yes.
I have read one. I have more of his stuff on my to-be-read list. But yes, I did enjoy Fault in Their Stars.
So
I was just say that seems like Emily books. I can say from Emily's personality, like that feels accurate.
John
Green.
Green.
If she hasn't read them, yeah.
Okay, so I would say, So now here's your homework. No, I'm not going to give you.
No,
but if you do read, right? If you do read Looking for Alaska, let me know what you think.
Okay.
And if it kind of had that I could kind of draw a line between the two, where you kind of can with some of the other John, like if you say Fault in Our Stars, sure we could find some connections here.
I've just had this could be a weird epiphany.
Yeah.
Like of your childhood librarian.
I love it.
I was like, okay, what was mine? I really liked the Weston game.
Ooh.
And I love mysteries and thrillers now. Like it all makes sense. The through line is that you could make like a whole little like flow chart of this. That is completely out of the flow, but I just like epiphany. I saw myself have epiphany.
Another one. That's another one that too is one of those kind of in kind of like the it's not the YA yet, but it's not
that's what I was trying to think. Like, all right, what was I liking in that wheelhouse?
For sure.
So because of Winn-Dixie, that kind of thing.
No, I was just thinking, what were the other books I read around the time? Because of Winn-Dixie, Tuck Everlasting, which I reread like every 2 years. I love Tuck Everlasting.
That explains a lot about you, Emily.
So much, probably. Like I was trying to think of those books that I read.
Good one.
Freak the Mighty.
We should do that one.
The one I loved. But there's. We should definitely do Tuck Everlasting on our podcast. I think
Eric, do you like that one? I was like, we're about to invite Eric.
I want to say
we're about to do an entire series on just banned books.
I've seen them, right? No, hey, you've got the list to start. If you guys would be like deep dive episodes like you do on any of these, I'd be excited.
We would love to have you.
But that would be exciting too. I was just saying, if you guys did them and I got to listen, I would be excited.
No, we'd love to have you on. You are
amazing.
Are to be read here. So I will get us back to Bridge to Terabithia.
Oh yeah, bring us back over that bridge.
Back on the swing on a rope and fall to my death.
Yeah.
I had not engaged with this until 2 days ago, but I was aware of it. I feel like sometimes you were in like different reading groups in school, and like some kids read like one group, but like my group did not read Bridge to Terabithia, but I knew it existed. And then I remember seeing the trailers for it when it came out. I don't know if either of you got into this. Do you know like the controversy about the way that this movie was marketed?
I think this might be the go forward with it, but this might be my hot take problem with it.
Yeah. So the marketing was very much like leaning into the high fantasy of the imaginative scenes in Terabithia, the CGI effects, like really trying to set itself up to be like, if you liked Chronicles of Narnia, you're gonna love Bridge to Terabithia. And so I didn't see it. I guess I would have been 15 when it came out. Like I remember seeing, like I can picture the trailer in the movie theater being like, I don't know, like I'm starting to age out of this. I'm okay. Did not see it, but then it affected a whole generation because I can remember being on Tumblr in college and there being all these memes. So I watched the movie 2 days ago, but it wasn't a big twist for me when they pulled the rug out from under you and they're like, she died. Because so many people were like, I've got beef with this rope swing, like this movie. So the controversy, to circle back, was that a lot of kids went into it, or like parents took their kids to it thinking like, oh, this is going to be this high fantasy kids imaginative thing, and it is, as Emily said, a sad story.
Yeah, you end up going through all stages of
tropics.
Yeah.
So what's your hot take?
So when I had read it before the movie was even a thing, I did not even read into the make-believe that they did. Like, sure, they had their treehouse on the other side of the river.
Play.
Yeah, and I didn't, like, think it was going to be any sort of, like, it didn't warrant any CGI fantasy elements. So when the movie came out, I was like, that's not the Bridge to Terabithia. I don't know what movie this is. Like, seeing the trailers. And then, so the first time I actually saw it was when I was a middle school English teacher at the time, and we would do the week before a break or something, they would schedule like an incentive movie day for like a certain portion of the day. They would play a movie through our closed circuit TV. And then they chose The Bridge to Terabithia. And I was like, are you guys sure you want to do this? Like, do you know what's going to happen? Like, so it's that same kind of controversy that you have. And I'm like, well, this is what we're doing. Me, the seventh grade ELA teacher sitting there at the time. I'm like, it's happening. And the kids weren't really into the movie at the beginning. It's got that kind of quiet, kind of
slow start
pacing at the beginning. Yeah, it's got that slow start. And then like by the time the fantasy things kicked in, some of them were, still not buying it yet. And then like the last part of the movie, the third act here, when she falls off and dies, and everyone was just like, whoa, what are we watching? Like I'm in this room with all these seventh graders, and I was like, this is why I was like, are you sure we want to do this? Are we sure we want to do this right now? It's a whole school movie. Okay, here we go.
I want to read the book to see how they handle the death, because it just is like a blip. In the movie I watched, like, he goes on, like, I don't know, the whole like teacher taking him to the museum just felt really weird in the movie. The way they framed it, I was like, this is giving me the ick. I don't know. Like, I know it's very innocent.
Right.
It was framed weird. Anyway, all that aside, he comes home, they're like, we thought you were dead. He's like, dead? And they're like, yeah, Leslie's dead. And it's out of nowhere, like, it sounded like, Emily, from what you were describing, there's a little more build-up, there's tension. But it comes out that he feels guilty.
Yeah.
That he didn't, like, you see him think about asking her to go to the museum, but he wants to go with his teacher. But I was like, oh, like, I went into the whole movie knowing that she died, and I thought it was going to be, like, more dramatic than it was. Yeah. Like, but I didn't need to see her die. I don't want this to be misconstrued. But like, I was like waiting for this like moment, and I was like, oh, like, she dead. We just wrote her out of the script now. So what do you remember from the book, Emily or Eric?
And Eric, you can correct me. I remember, it's been a few years. I have read it, I think probably 3 times, but it's been a long time since that last read. But like going to the museum, but they had some tension beforehand. And like they have a rift, like friendships do, they fight over something, and so fine, I'm going over, you do whatever, and they split their ways. He does the museum thing. He's like, I'm good, I don't need this. But then misses his friend, and I felt there was a moment like he goes to find her and he goes to the treehouse, but he can't get over there because the rope swing is gone, or like he goes over to her house or something, is like, hey, is she here? Can we talk? And that like something happens that he's trying to reconnect with his friend, and then like that's where the guilt comes from, of like where he left their friendship on a bad place, and then she passes or something like that. That's what I remember.
There is some more guilt that's built, and in the movie it's one of those things that because they turned the time of the movie up more on the fantasy play kind of thing,
a little weird.
They turned down the main purpose of the story with the grief and the dealing with it, because there's a scene where they do have a rift, and then when he's going to go on his day trip with the teacher, because the skeleton of the story is almost identical in the book and the in the movie. They don't change major events that much. When he's going on his day trip with the teacher to the museum, he like kind of thinks about, and you get kind of the mental gymnastics that he does of like, should I invite her to come with us? Mm-hmm. But they had just kind of had that rift. So then the guilt is shown even stronger, because he kind of feels like if he would have just stopped and said, hey, can we come with us to the museum, then it wouldn't have happened that she would have gone to the treehouse to Terabithia that day. He could have stopped it.
It's really all the teacher's fault for taking him to the
maybe Zoe Deschanel's fault. No,
Zoe, what are you doing? I also wanted to share a fun fact that I learned, because like you, Eric, if I'm watching a movie at home, I am now on IMDb and Wikipedia at the same time. So two facts, but they're interconnected. I learned that Katherine wrote this book after the death of her son's friend. Like, this is inspired by a true story in regards to her son was a bit younger, like 8 at the time, and he had a girl that he was friends with, but unrelated to, you know, like a falling out or anything. It was just tragic. She was struck by lightning at the beach and was only 8 years old, but like obviously she then saw her son go through this grieving process, so that's what inspired her to write the book. And then I learned that he is one of the screenplay writers credited on the movie. So I thought that was a cool full circle that, you know, she kind of wrote this for her son, and then he was able to then channel those feelings into writing the screenplay for the Disney film. So thank you, Wikipedia and IMDb.
Right? If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you really like this video, visit synergylovescompany.com for the full audio podcast.